This video contains opinions on first aid best practices while underway. GLGBA in no way endorses opinions expressed in this video. For medical advice, always consult a licensed medical practitioner.
Good morning, and again, my name is Lyn Wolf, and this is kind of entertaining and stressful all at the same time. So you went to the Young Americans last night, and now I have to follow that act and try to be as energizing, talking about first aid, which is my other hilarious part. Everyone has walked up to me and said, "Oh, you're a Pilates instructor, you're going to talk to us about fitness." We're close, it's an F, but no, it's going to be first aid. So what I would like to start with, has anyone here been in the military? Has anyone here been in the Army? I know, we got a lot of Navy people. What is the first thing that you read in your manual when you join the Army? Very first page, when you open up your book.
No idea.
Seriously?
No idea.
We fight the way we've trained because we train the way we fight. And that is what this is really going to be about today, is do we know how to take care of everything and do we practice it? That is the biggest part. It's okay to say we have a first aid kit, we know how to do a pan or a Mayday, but do we really know what's going on and are we prepared for it? So that's what I'm going to focus my lecture on. And at any point, please feel free to ask questions. And I brought in practice AED, so after lunch when we're all outside, I believe, I have that and you can touch it, you can hit the button, you can know that it talks back to you. All right, so pre-assault. We all will be assaulted with injury, illness, or disease. It's how we react, right? All right. My first thing is an emergency response sheet. Now, Laura has not passed that portion out yet, but we will send that to you. And you may want to change your emergency response sheet. This is simply what I have put together. And it's something you can use, but if you have people on your boat who maybe they don't know everything and you're the injured party and they have to know what to do, you have this great sheet that tells them what to do. Ideas that I've included on the sheet. Communication. Does everybody on the boat know how to use the radio? If you have guests on the boat, do they know how to use the radio? Are you within cell phone service? If you're within cell phone service, do you know how to set a coordinate on your phone? Because 911 can actually track that to come find you. Do you have a sat phone? If you do, does everybody know how to use it and where is it located at? So these are great things to just kind of practice. Location. It's not just a matter of where you currently are. If you have an emergency on board, some things that make a real big difference for 911 and the Coast Guard and anybody else is what is your current location, what is your direction of travel, and what is your speed of travel. And a lot of this that I'm sharing, because you're kind of all looking at me a little bit blank, I know I'm not as energizing as the Young Americans, but if you know this, do you practice it? Do you just stop your boat and say, where are we currently at, how fast am I going, and what is my direction of travel? So let's go back to the basics of practice, practice, practice. We fight the way we've trained because we train the way we fight. All right, now, here's a great list to have on the boat. When you call on the radio or 911, we want to be brief. We don't want to be too wordy. We don't want to take up too much time. So what do we need to share with Central Dispatch or with who may hear this on the radio? What is your type of emergency? So a brief description. And this may vary based on, really it kind of comes down to, is it mechanical? Is it a body? If it's the body, is it health related, which meaning cardiac event, or is it trauma, like we've had a leg cut off? So it kind of narrows it into those those basic areas. So you have the type of emergency. The type of situation. What I'd like you to be able to include is the person's age, potential previous health history. So if you said, I have a 74-year-old male on board who appears to be having a cardiac event and currently has a pacemaker. That pretty much covers it. What you don't have to share immediately on the radio, but have it, if you or anyone on board has medications, do you have a list of medications? The best thing that has ever happens to me when I show up at a house, on a boat, anywhere, is to walk up and say, what do you have going on today, blah, blah, blah. And wife says, by the way, here's a list of every medication that he's on, and he just took them at breakfast, and this is what he had to eat. So I know that he has food in his stomach, I know that he's taken all of his medications, and I know what he's on. And it includes a list, hopefully, of any allergies to medications. Great thing to have on board for you, your loved ones. If somebody comes on board with you, are they on medications? Do they have allergies that require an EpiPen? If they do, where is their EpiPen at? Is it with them? Okay, and time the event started. If you have an emergency, if you can, grab a scratch piece of paper, write on your pant leg the time that it starts. If you start CPR, note the time that you started CPR. Just keep track of times. It helps, especially if the person's having a stroke. Are we within that window of we can make a traumatic difference for the outcome? Okay, so time it started. All right, basics that we want to know about the patient. Are they alert? Are they responsive? And are they appropriate? So that person who may be having a diabetic issue, you know they're not appropriate. They cannot answer questions, they do not know the day, they do not know the time. It could be a concussion person, they would have those same issues. But are they appropriate? And really what it comes down to, it tells you, is air going in and out, and is blood going round and round? Those are the things that are vital for life function. Air in and out, blood round and round. That's my simple version of it. Be calm. Calm is clear, calm is smooth, smooth is fast. So that is really the big takeaway on that portion. If we practice it, we're calm. We do not get excited when it happens, and we're able to do everything very efficiently. All right, I already talked about medications. Okay, first aid kit, fire extinguisher and flares. Where is it on your boat? Does everybody here comfortably know where their first aid kit is on their boat? Perfect. Do your loved ones know where it is on the boat? I had somebody admit to me when I was putting this together, I know where my first aid kit is. I don't think my husband has an idea at all where it could be located. So, not only do you know where it is, you've now brought guests on your boat. Do they know where your emergency response sheet is, and do they know where the first aid kit is? Because you may be the person that needs the care and the help. Let's see here, I covered that portion of it. Is everything in it up to date? And you want to check this every so often. If it has anything that can expire, or if it's tape or rubber gloves, that stuff you want to change out, because you're going to put the rubber glove on and your fingers are going to go all the way through. Things need to be updated and changed out. So just keep an eye on it. And oh hey, it makes us familiar with where it is and what's in it. Let's see here. Does this include a book or a manual of basic first aid techniques and treatment? Believe it or not, they make great picture books. And when we are nervous, picture books are great. They are wonderful. They show us exactly what to do. The AED comes with pictures of where to put the pads. You don't have to read. It needs to go on the left side slightly to the lateral portion of the rib cage, blah, blah, blah. It shows a picture. So, believe it, let's go back to being children. Get a picture book. All right. Your emergency response sheet, talked about that. Where is it located? Does everybody know? Anyone who comes on board. Additional ideas for a first aid kit. You have that in the printout. I am not going to bore you going through scissors, tweezers. I wrote that all out for you for a purpose, so we don't have to worry about it. Sorry, if I keep going out, just holler at me. It's okay. Sterling hollers at me all the time. Not a problem. All right, know your crew, know your guests. And this goes back to when somebody comes on board, do they have a health condition that you should know about just in case? Do they have allergies, whether it's to medication or environmental, aka the bee stings? Do they know how to use the VHF radio? Do they know where the first aid kit is? And how many here practice man overboard? Yay, that's more than I anticipated. So, funny story, I would highly recommend if you are in the Sea of Cortez practicing man overboard, do not do it right off of La Paz in the shipping channel or the boating channel that takes all the guests out to the sea lions. Because the nice young gentlemen in the pangas keep picking up your man overboard and bringing it to you when you are trying to practice. So our poor Paco was rescued many more times than he needed to be. But practice that, and on the days that you're not practicing it and you have new members on board, take a minute to tell them, this is what we do in a man overboard situation. Somebody will keep an eye on the person in the water, somebody else will be at the boat or at the helm. But just give a brief review, because if you're the only keeper of the knowledge, you can't do everything by yourself. You're wonderful, I know you are, but it's a lot to do. So again, back to that practice and be able to share that knowledge with anyone who comes on your boat. All right, most common emergencies. And again, I have this at the basics of it. Cardiovascular, the blood flowing through the body. Stroke, warning signs, FAST, F-A-S-T, facial droop, arm drift, speech, tongue out, and deviates. So always that ability to say, hey, can you stick your tongue out for me? And if they aim for the center of their chin and it goes right or left, there's one of your signs. Bear in mind, that particular one also goes hand in hand with a concussion. Heart attack. Do you have aspirin on board? Do you have an AED? And do you know CPR? If you know nothing else about CPR, for those of you who are in the age ranks of me and a little bit older, we started out learning 5 compressions, 1 breath. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, and it is all about the compressions. If you never get a good seal for mouth to mouth, which I do not recommend mouth to mouth, if you do not have a pocket mask, just do chest compressions. But it is all about keeping the blood moving in the body. And again, that is something when I'm outside, if you want to talk about that in more detail. And the AED will actually set a paced beat for you to know how fast your compression should be. If you do not have an AED, when you are doing chest compressions, think of the old movie, Staying Alive, and that song, and you want to work to that rhythm. So see, I'm bringing back the young Americans. But that really is that simple. An AED is only as effective as the chest compressions. All right, so I deviated again, I'm sorry. I get a little long in the tooth on CPR. All right, anaphylaxis versus an allergic reaction. Anaphylaxis is more of a life-threatening, you need an EpiPen or a Benadryl or a rescue inhaler. This is something that it needs and requires immediate action. The person who may require an EpiPen may require it more than once. Do not be shocked by that if you have to poke them or stick them a second time. Versus an allergic reaction, oh, hey, what do you know, I got into poison ivy, and maybe a little Benadryl or cortisone cream is going to alleviate that. So that is the difference between allergic reaction and anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is an emergency. Something is going to change for them, and it's probably not going to be for the better. All right, the logical one, hypothermia. Are they shivering? Do they have decreased consciousness? Are they suffering any confusion? Those are the big things. And we know that this can happen. Where do we spend our time? On the water. Does somebody go overboard? On occasion. Does somebody go overboard intentionally and then realize they probably shouldn't have? Yes, that happens. I've done that. And then what do we need to do? We need to gradually rewarm them. And if you notice in your first aid list, it includes the little silver space blanket, which does help with those things. I didn't include on here, but I know that you all would be thinking of this. If you have a overboard incident or a hypothermia incident, if their clothes are wet and cold, get their clothes off of them. Make sure that whatever is touching their body is warm and dry. That is number one. Get everything that's cold away from them. If you have hot packs and you can put them underneath the armpits, in the groin area, those things help. That's where our skin, our blood vessels are closest to the surface, which is kind of interesting, goes hand in hand with heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Armpits, groin area are great for cold packs. So going on to that heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Appearance. One of the big things is when you see that somebody quits perspiring. When the perspiring is done, they are going south. This is when the change is happening. When they are still perspiring, they are doing okay. Not great, but okay. That is a classic warning sign. That is the easiest one to see, the easiest one to know. So passive cooling for exhaustion would be something like rehydrating, getting the water going. This idea of Gatorade and electrolytes, no. It's nothing but sugar and trash, no. N-O spells If you do keep Celtic sea salt or a good sea salt on your boat, if you put a pinch in a glass of water, barely enough to even taste, that replaces your electrolytes and it rebalances your sodium-potassium pump. Everything in our lives, in our bodies, revolves around a sodium-potassium exchange. So you're now giving them healthy sodium without all the sugar and all the trash. Sorry, that was my soapbox for just a minute, I'm off it. All right, active cooling for the person who is having a stroke. Cold water, ice, remember we were talking armpits, groin area, belly is another great one, and the wrist. Back of the neck feels good for them, it's not always as effective. How are we doing so far? Am I making sense?
Yes.
Am I getting through it in a reasonable amount of time? Because you're like, this is not a topic that's making me excited. I know this. Okay, good. All right, diabetic reaction. Hypo versus hyper. Hypo being that acute reaction. This is the low sugar, which indicates they need simple sugars. When in doubt, give them sugar. Hyper, this is the slow onset in diabetes. This is the person who's going to have some nausea, they start to look glazed over, they look a little bit confused, and here's your challenging part. These are also the same things that happen with somebody who has a grade 3 concussion or potentially a stroke. This person, though, they're going to need to have hydration, and it really is an emergent situation. They probably need insulin, and they probably need IV fluids, which immediately goes into the bloodstream. You're not always going to know the difference. So know who's on your boat. Try this. How many people here brush their teeth with their right hand? Give it. Try brushing your teeth with your left hand. Then try brushing your teeth standing on one foot. Maybe have that other foot bracing somewhere. But balance is huge as we age, and it is the interesting little things that make a difference to keep our right and our left brain activating with our body to the right and the left. I am telling you, when you try brushing your teeth with your left hand, have the glass cleaner out because it's going to end up on your mirror. So those are just some really simple things to be able to be doing squats. If you don't want to do a one-legged squat, you can do 2 legs at the same time, and you're getting even a little bit more work into your glute muscles. Sit-ups, not always my favorite because I like to teach Pilates and that's a whole nother monster, but anything that engages your abdominal muscles. But you can make everything engage your abdominal muscles. Bending over to pick up a piece of paper off the floor, you can engage your abdominal muscles. Those are all great things that we can be doing. If you have downtime, and you've now exercised, and you've cleaned the boat, and you've checked your first aid kit, and you know that the pads for your AED are up to date, and the list is all done, instead of watching a movie or getting out an iPhone and scrolling Facebook because you're in a marina and you have signal, get out a crossword puzzle. Do something to keep our brains active. They deserve as much attention as our body does. If that's all, thank you very much. It was an honor and a privilege to be asked to come here. Have a great and wonderful day.